Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Old Hunt, where we are still celebrating 10 years of Bloodborne. Last time, after taking care of a few loose ends, we fought an enemy, died, and were kidnapped. We were thrown into this cell, and after our escape, which wasn't really all that hard, but still, after our escape from that cell, we then came over, we learned some of the plot that's been unfolding in this city right beneath our very noses. As well as got an indication that there's some sort of secret ritual going on that's being hidden, and presumably, if we connect some dots by the Bergenworth spider, gives us something of a new goal, gets us a better understanding of the sort of hidden machinations that are at work on this particular night of the hunt, that are drawing the moon and all that. While that's true, though, Gameplay Matt doesn't have the advantage of being reminded by YouTube commenter Benre that there's actually more than one ritual taking place on this particular night. This will become clearer in time, but I think it's important to clarify now that the kidnappings and implied sacrifices that Adela told us about, which took place around the same time as our arrival in Yharnam, are most likely related to a different ritual than the one that's calling the moon. In fact, we have visual evidence to indicate that this more hidden ritual has been going on for some time. So, while I think it's fair to say that Bloodborne is a game about engaging with active plots in a way that other Souls games aren't, the exact timeline involved in these two separate schemes isn't as straightforward as I suggested last time. Thanks again to Benre for pointing this out, and if anyone watching notices me making other mistakes, please feel free to bring them up as well. As Gameplay Matt can attest, that wasn't the only issue with the previous episode. Also, I completely messed up a whole bunch of NPC names without really thinking about it. It's sort of comical. I was editing the previous episode, and I just kept having to be like, nope, I meant this NPC. Nope, I meant this NPC. I kept naming the wrong people. Hopefully, we're past that phase of my recording, but I don't promise anything. I can always make more mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, I also realized that I forgot I wanted to show off the description for the weapon that I switched to, which is the saw spear. So here we are. Let's take a look at this. So one of the trick weapons, or a little bit more literally device-installed weapons of the workshop that our hunters use on beast hunts, or in beast hunting, whichever you prefer. Variously functions as a saw which tears through inhuman beast's flesh before transformation, and a spear that fights at range after transformation. A little bit literal there, but that's what the nature of this is. I have to be sort of literal, I have to work quickly. Let's see. And then the final section, saws with their rows of blades or teeth which bite into blood. Not entirely sure of the verb there, but we'll go with it for now. Are a weapon that particularly symbolizes beast hunting. And it is precisely those who are terribly transformed who they are held to be effective against. Something like that. Anyway, that's sort of the lore version of the mechanical information I was talking about in the last episode, where I was mentioning how the saws have a special, serrated damage that they deal to beasts. If I remember the research I did after the episode correctly, it was something like 20% damage boost that you get when fighting beasts with saw-type weapons, which... weirdly, the saw cleaver in its closed up form, as you see it in the picture here, counts as a saw, but when you flip it open, it doesn't. The saw spear has the advantage of counting as a saw in both of its forms, both pre and post transformation, which is kind of cool. But anyway, that's what that piece of information is. What are the, again, ways that Bloodborne gives you an extra bit of information on the mechanical end by putting it in terms of its lore. And I really think it's cool how the game does that. Now, one of these ways, here we go, has a materials enemy, and I would really like to get those materials. Thing is, I would really not like, I don't know if you can hear those heavy footfalls, but yeah, there's a kidnapper walking around. I would really not like to engage that kidnapper in combat. So let's go down this way. Is this bottom floor the cell floor? I think it is. Okay. Yes. Fair enough. So this is essentially just a circle. I know there's another area through that particular doorway. Is the enemy still there, or has he left? I'm not seeing an enemy. Alright, so I'm just going to grab those. Yeah, there we go. 3 twin stone shards, twin bloodstone shards. That's what I like to see. And let's just come over this way. Make sure there's no enemy over here. Okay, after a while, as you can see, at least one of them turns their back to you. The other one, I think, goes up these stairs. I forget which way it goes up. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's the both of them, and that's it. Well, as you can see, we found the lamppost. This is a key discovery to make here, because now we can go to and from the dream whenever we want. And we've also got this interesting, I don't know, looks like a child figure sat here on this chair with a cage over their head. That will take on some significance later on, but at the moment, of course, we have 0 context for it. And then this particular statue, we're going to be seeing a lot more statues like this, and then we're going to see eventually some of the things that statue is based on. But again, this is one of the ways Bloodborne, I think, does a really good job of portraying the eldritch nature of its horror, is that it gives you these images and this information, and we've seen it even with the way it gives you some of its items, a little bit in advance of when you can fully make sense of them or even use them. So you're always being confronted with these strange things about the world of Bloodborne, including notes like this. I don't remember this one being super weird, but let's give it a read and we'll see what that actually says. Okay, well, it is also super weird. This is another example of what I was talking about. I just completely forgot. Okay, so the nightmare ritual, the ritual of the nightmare, or the nightmarish rituals, because ritual, this is Japanese, it could be either singular or plural, and nightmare is modifying the term ritual, but it's a little bit unclear what form of modification is happening right here. This is the thing about Japanese. If you don't have a lot of context, it's all very unclear. Anyway, the ritual of the nightmare is together with a baby. I hate how this sounds in literal translation. Find, presumably, the baby. There are no articles in Japanese either, so it could also just be a random baby. Find a random baby. I don't think so. I think it's the baby from the previous line. And, like, there's sort of a pleading quality to the final sentence, because it ends in, like, tekure, as in, like, do this in command form, but as a favor to the writer. So, and then be kind enough, I guess, to get at that sort of extra little bit of note in the final part of the sentence. So, like, be so kind as to stop its crying voice. So we need to find the crying baby that's together with the nightmare ritual and stop it from crying. And that'll make a lot more sense much later on. That's not even one, like, or the note we found down below where I was mentioning it sort of gives us more purpose, gives us more of a through line as we make our way through the game. That one, like, it'll make sense, but it's nowhere near as understandable as the other one. All right, now one of these enemies is sure to notice me. There it is. There it is. So while it's making its way over, I noticed that I still have poison knives equipped. And as I recall, kidnappers, at least in the later versions of the game, are pretty susceptible to getting poisoned. And, oh, there we go. We got it. We got some poison to stick. I'm getting the impression that poison is just, in general, harder to get working in version 1.00 as opposed to later versions. Again, I could be completely wrong. I'm not looking at any mechanical information to come to that conclusion. But I seem to recall that in 1.09, those things get poisoned with one knife. And in this case, it took me, like, 3. All right, it's going to run. It's already buffed itself, which is unfortunate. Which means if I get... Uh-oh. Did not want to do the transformation attack that brought me closer to it just then. Yep. All right, good. All right, that was a good dodge on my part, and that was a very lucky final blow. Must have been one of its dodges. And I wish it had dropped twin bloodstone shards instead of regular ones, but that's okay. I'm most happy that it was defeated without much trouble on my part. Now this one, thankfully, because it is facing away from us, should easily fall prey to my sneak attack. Uh-oh! I was saying, easily fall prey to my sneak attack. Yeah, not really. Alright, the buff, is it going to be long enough? Yes. Alright, thankfully, that buff still takes so long that it's not really a problem for me to get the follow-up. There we go, Twin Bloodstone Shard. That's what I like to see. And there we have another rune. It is the Moon Rune. Alright, now, this rune is fairly important, as I recall. Let's just find out about it a little bit. Here we go. Not so fast, gameplay Matt. You see, I failed to recall just how torn I am about translating this particular item, so I'm going to take this on in editing. Now, the first line is straightforward enough. It's the standard opening phrase for one of Carol's runes. Literally, one of the secret letters left by copyist Carol, student of Bergenworth. Where things get tricky is the next line, because as I've mentioned before, while Japanese can specify whether a given noun is singular or plural, the default state of nouns can be interpreted either way, and there are no articles like you might expect in English to clarify things. This means the line could be read, "That is a transcription of the voice of the Great One that dwells in the nightmare," or "That is a transcription of the voices of great ones dwelling in nightmares," or even other variations like, "That is a transcription of the voices of great ones dwelling in a nightmare." As to which of these interpretations is correct, well, like I said before, I'm torn. Oh, and this discussion is about to get a little spoilery, so if you want to avoid that, skip ahead to around the time shown on screen. Right, so on the one hand, we're going to find out that there are indeed several nightmare realms and multiple great ones who dwell within them. On the other hand, we will eventually learn that the nightmare realm of the hunter's dream that our character is bound to has something to do with the moon. I'll let Gameplay Matt elaborate on that. But I think it's suggestive that the hunter is tied to the moon, and the hunter is the one entity, as far as we know of in this game, that can take blood echoes and weave those blood echoes into their being to fortify them. So, essentially, we can use blood echoes to level up. As far as we know, hunters of the dream are the only things that can do that. And as we'll see, the dream is sort of tied to the moon, and again, because of the nature of the ending that I'm intending to go for this playthrough, sadly, we're not going to actually get, like, first-hand verification of what's going on, what the specific tie between the dream and the moon is. But even if you look over, right, so if you look all the way on the right-hand side, where we have the screen that's showing stats and things, the very first thing next to our level, it's a picture of a moon, right? Underneath that, we have blood echoes, and that's being indicated by the hunter symbol, right? So hunters gain blood echoes, right? They're associated with things that are dead. They're inheriting the will of those who have died. And that's all being associated with hunters and hunting. But what's associated with levels? What's associated with taking those blood echoes and weaving them into our being and making us stronger? The moon, right? Looks like a crescent moon. Now, that's a little bit of interpretation on my part, of course. It doesn't necessarily have to be a crescent moon, but it sure looks like one to me. And since that is sort of tied to how we level up, I think it all does sort of hang together and make sense. And speaking of blood echoes and leveling up in the moon and all this and that, let's finish this rune description. Okay, there's my cue to take over again. The next line is thankfully another straightforward one. Given the meaning of moon, in quotation marks, this brings about greater bequeathed will of blood. So far, so good, and we're potentially seeing another tie between the concept of the moon and gathering blood echoes. Then things get confusing again, though, so allow me to read out 3 possible ways to parse this final section. Option 1. The Great One of the Nightmare is of what you might call a responsive spirit, and therefore often responds to the voices of those who call on it. Option 2. The Great Ones of Nightmares are of what you might call a responsive spirit, and therefore often respond to the voices of those who call on them. Option 3, the official translation of the great ones that inhabit the nightmare are sympathetic in spirit, and often answer when called upon. I bring up this last option because I find it interesting that the official translation speaks of the nightmare here, as if all the nightmare realms we have access to were linked into a single aspect of the world. And of course, we've seen the official translators make mistakes. They're only human, and we're probably working with imperfect information. But in general, when we get perplexing or ambiguous phrases like this, I think it's worth paying attention to the interpretations of the people who had access to the developers when translating. Broadly speaking, though, it seems to me that either this set of lines is a statement about Great Ones in general, or it's a description of the attitude of a specific Great One, such as the one I mentioned earlier that's associated with the dream and leveling us up with blood echoes. Again, I find myself conflicted as to which of these interpretations to go with, because on the one hand, I think it makes sense to think of Great Ones in general as being responsive. We're eventually going to be in a position to make contact with a Great One in a nightmare ourselves, and when we do, we'll get something out of it. Also, Bloodborne ends up involving the intervention of these Great Ones in human affairs a good deal, from the main plot to how curses work and more. On the other hand, the idea that it's specifically the Great One associated with the moon that's so sympathetic works well with the idea that the most hidden ritual taking place in the world of the game right now has been designed to call the moon. Oh, and one last interesting aspect of the lore that changes a bit depending on your interpretation involves Carol, because this is said to be one of his runes. That means he either had access to one or more nightmare realms, if this is a general statement, or the Hunter's Dream in particular, if this is meant to be that specific. Right, now I'll let Gameplay Matt sum up my feelings on all of this. Whew, this is, again, kind of a brain bender of a rune, thanks mostly to how vague the Japanese language is. But there we have it. We now have access to the moon rune, and if you want to optimize how many blood echoes you get, right, like you got to go back to the dream right now and put that on. I'm not going to bother with that. I want to continue exploring this area and go forward without having to worry too much about that. And all right, listen, I think, yeah, I have to run through this thing, because not only is there that one enemy that rushes past the doorway, there is the other enemy that rushes after. And apparently they will corner you against a cage if you're, foolish enough to ignore them. This is the thing that they get if you just carelessly walk down that staircase. And am I dead? No, okay, nope, I am dead. I thought I might have just barely survived, even after I pumped my HP. I was mashing the shoulder buttons and everything. Alright, this enemy is going down the stairs. Okay, the one that looks my way comes from the other direction. Alright, and I foolishly called the attention of the one that goes down the stairs. So I'm just going to run this way and leave those enemies alone and come over this way. And this time, run past these enemies, but be more prepared for the ensuing ambush. Alright, now that they've missed... Right. Not as scared as the one where... not as scared of the attack where they just smack you. But the one where they gouge your eyes out, that one's nasty. Alright, and I'm remembering that the enemies in those cages will wake up. This is the wrong screen. Need to go not here. This is also the wrong screen. There's too many screens! Not really. I'm just bad at remembering. There we go. Got my portable lantern turned on. Alright. And now I should be able, yep, that's what I thought, to attack through this cage. Because this is a video game. And these guys are interesting. You'll note that they are transformed beasts, but they appear to be just wearing fairly casual clothing. And I sort of suspect that this is another set of cells, and they've been rounded up and thrown in here, and possibly as a result of the near moon or something, right? Like, they've all turned. Remember how we've learned that even in the regular part of Yharnam, those who were shut up inside are transforming. So it's possible that these enemies were captured as humans, they were brought here, and as the moon descended, they then transformed. Or, of course, it's possible they were captured here as beasts and then thrown in these cages. But I sort of think it's more interesting, and therefore I want to believe it, if we think of them as having been captured sort of along with Adela, but they didn't manage to maintain their humanity, whereas she did. All right. Oh, yes. I like that. I like getting all those blood vials. Okay. And, oh, I thought I'd be opening the door from this side, not that I would encounter it locked. Oops. Oh, well. Okay, and now we go into this other cell. And we've got more kidnapper enemies that we will soon need to be dealing with. So I want to make sure that all of these people are slain. Yep, I can hear those scary, scary footsteps. Let's take a look in here. Yep. Yep. Didn't get to see it, but there's a little bit of a conference going on in that other room. Conference of kidnappers. They're all standing around a table. I think there are only 2 of them, really, but 2 of these enemies are really scary. Because one... Uh-oh. As I almost die. One of these enemies is enough to potentially kill you, particularly if you're not really able to get it doing that. Here we go. This sort of self-buff. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I wasn't able to take advantage of it. So, one of them, you can generally get to the point where when they're doing that self-buff, you can get around, exploit their attack pattern. I was too slow on the transformation. Ooh, I lived. Whew, I would not have lived that time. This is why they give you 6 blood vials. I've already used 7. But one-on-one, you can usually take advantage of their buffing animation to backstab and then destroy them. So they're less of a threat one at a time. However, if you have 2 or more, while one of them is buffing itself, the other one can be attacking you, and then it's just bad news all the time. That's not fun. There's the conference table over there. And I think it looks like I can sneak up from the other direction? I don't know. I always come at it from this one particular cell, because it's easier to draw this one away separately, as you saw. But, if I come over this way, and then just very slowly and carefully sneak up on this one, now that it's alone. Have to remember the other one sort of sensed me from further back than I thought. Maybe this is where the saw spear will shine. Maybe it'll give me a long-range attack. Look at that. Yes! Go saw spear. Unfortunately, I had to sort of transform it back. Oh, it hasn't done the buff yet. Beautiful. Ooh, I like that. Good job, saw spear. And that was another twin bloodstone shard. We've got to be getting close, right? We need, what, 8 of them? And we've got 7. Ooh, we're getting close to the final slot on this saw spear. That's going to be nice. Okay, and I don't think there's a treasure here just yet. If I go through here and then go through this hole in the wall, I'll eventually go through a drop, which is sort of a one-way drop, because there's no way for you to, like, jump or climb in Bloodborne. Well, you can sort of jump. You can jump horizontally, but you don't go very high vertically, and it's enough of a vertical drop that you can't get back up, and then you're locked into a boss fight. That is not exactly what I want to be doing right now. I want to be continuing to explore the strange hidden ward that we've found ourselves in, which I don't think I mentioned. The name of this place popped up on screen when we first got kidnapped and taken here. This is Yahar Ghul, the Hidden Ward, literally. What is it? Unseen Village, I think is the official translation. It's been a long time since I've thought of it in official terms. The fun thing about the quote-unquote literal version, though, is that you could think of it as Yahagru, which sounds terrible. Again, it's one of these how do you parse katakana questions. So there is there's a little bit of leeway in Yahaguru, and you can make that into Yahar Ghul, which I think sounds cool and very appropriate to the world of Bloodborne, or you can do Yahagru, which is just silly. It's kind of fun to think of. See, I thought because I have the blood bullets, I thought I'd make use of a parry strategy, but boy was that a bad idea, because not only did I fail to get that parry, but I attracted the attention of the other kidnapper. I do not want to be attracting the attention of many kidnappers. I want to do the opposite of attracting attention of kidnappers. Okay. Ooh, but this one's now walking back. Can I get just you? How about it? I don't know what that other one's doing, but it is not coming this way. Yeah, you continue to dance over there. In shock, in awe from my use of that bullet. I'm just going to take 3 more shots at you to get off as much damage as I can. I doubt that will be enough damage to activate any sort of buff on that enemy's part. Yeah. Come on up here, where there's actually room to fight you one-on-one. This is what I want. Yes, a little further. A little further. I don't care that you drew me in closer to you. A little further. They tend to move very suddenly, so you gotta watch out. They've got this slow gait, and then it's punctuated by a sudden jump that catches you off guard. And attacks that seem to reach forever. Alright, there's the self-buff. I should not have jumped away. Ha! But I'm lucky! Uh-oh. Yes! I am very lucky! Very, very lucky. I managed to catch this guy in an unstoppable loop. Alright, there we go. Okay, now that, I think, might be worth going back to the dream for. Alright, first of all, I need to make more use of this thing in his handy spear mode to initiate another sort of backstab setup. And then chain it while this enemy is buffing itself. Or attempting to. And now it's dead. Ooh, very nice. Yeah, as I was sort of discovering before, that is a distinct advantage of the Saw Spear over the Saw Cleaver. The Saw Cleaver does give you the advantage of sort of an unusual attack pattern, because when you transform the Saw Cleaver, and then you do its attack, instead of getting this more vertical motion, you get sort of a horizontal swing that arcs around. And that arcing horizontal swing can be very useful for dealing with enemies in, like, awkward positions, and, like, particularly catching things around corners. So that one has its uses, but the fact that I could avoid the kidnapper noticing me by being just that little bit further away from a vertical strike, that's come in real handy already. Very nice. And I think we already killed the ambush enemy because she decided to walk out this way. The woman who would have gouged my eyes out. But, okay, cool. So, what do I want to do? There are a couple doors that it wouldn't hurt to have unlocked, but I also want to get that fire effect on my weapon. Finish leveling up this thing. I think I'm drawn to more progress. I don't necessarily want to make a ton of progress on the outside part of this level right now. I want to open those doors. That's what I want to focus on. Okay, we got a kidnapper with 2 dogs, which is quite a combination, let me tell you. Alright, we've got to kill the dogs away from the kidnapper. Clearly. Yeah. Yeah, alright, fine. You do that damage to me, and then I will kill you. Because of my quick succession of attacks. Alright, the kidnapper's catching up. Come on, doggo. Uh-oh. I dodged into the dog. Alright, that works. And I don't want to go too far that... Whoa, okay, hello! Quite a way to say hi. It just jumps out from behind a column and does a massive attack on me. Alright, can I... No! Yes, good. I got the stagger. I wasn't sure if I'd get the stagger or not. Alright, I'm gonna make some blood bullets here, recover that tiny bit of HP, because a single blow from these kidnappers can be deadly. Okay, miss me. Thank you. That should give me, yep, enough of an attack window to get the stagger, force the buff, and start the chain of backstabs. Yes! Uh-oh. It lived. Not what I wanted. Alright, you're getting shot to death, buddy. You get the distinction... Uh-oh. You get the distinction of death from afar. Death by bullets. Oh, I'm gonna have to go back to the dream just to replenish my blood vials. This is terrifying. These enemies... Oh, it's so nuts. Whew. Alright, but we're making it happen. We're making it work. Alright. Now, I think there's one random item out here. Oh, there's 2. It looks like. Yeah, I could see this before the level loaded in. Another twin bloodstone shard. That's good. We're gonna want a lot of those, because ideally we're gonna have a bunch of weapons that we get up to high levels. Some more high-level cold blood. That's good. And now we can open these doors, which I thought opened from the inside, but apparently they open from the outside. Is this the one where I killed everybody? Yes, it is. This is the one where I killed everybody. Cool. Have I used up any bullets? Let's find out. No. Okay. Alright. I've been using a lot of my blood bullets, but apparently I have not been eating into my actual stock of bullets. Alright, now, there is one more door that needs to be opened, and it's the other way, but I don't really want to engage with anything else outside here, particularly that boar. I want to leave it well and truly alone. So let's just run over this way. I think, yeah, there's another materials enemy out here, which will hopefully prove a source of more twin bloodstone shards. In fact, let's make use of some of these vertical... Oh, the R1 is a very side-swingy sort of attack. Ooh, look at that. 3 of them. Beautiful. I was going to talk about the vertical strikes, but that enemy is now dead, so it doesn't matter. There we go. And now the door's open. That's sort of the really important thing. And actually, looking at the clock, I know it's been a fairly short episode, but it's been long enough. And I think if we call it here, then next time we can explore outside and then maybe cap things off with the boss of this area. So I think this is actually a pretty good point to call it. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to level up in the dream, and then the next time we get together for our continuation of the old hunt, I will be warping back in. I think that's a good way to handle it. All right, I'll see you in the dream. All right, here we are in the dream, where I get to very excitingly come over to this workbench here and fortify my weapon. We're going to get the saw spear up to level 6. And now we need bloodstone chunks to upgrade it. And of course, we still have 5 twin bloodstone shards. So we still have access to them. But now that we have this thing at level 6, we've unlocked that final gem slot. And we can come down here to the blood gem fortification. Oh, I haven't had any blood gems in this item. I've been using it raw this whole time. That's funny. Just goes to show how just upgrading the weapon can sometimes be helpful. All right. Now here's the thing, a lot of these weapons, a lot of these gems that would boost our physical attack, as you can see, aren't really helping boost our fire attack. So that's sort of unfortunate. But we do have the gem that's converting our damage to fire damage anyway in here. So we can finally start to see what this build is all about. So that is something of an advantage for us. And let's see if I have enough to level up. I can probably afford 1 level here. Let's find out.
What is it? Very well, let me.
Yeah, it looks like maybe 2 even. Can we get Arcane to 20? Yeah, all right, beautiful. 25 is actually the soft cap, but 20 is a nice round number, particularly at this point in the game.
Farewell, good hunt, may.
So that's exciting. And then maybe we can buy 1 or 2 blood vials. Probably not many with only 1,500. Oh, maybe a little bit more. We can buy 4. Not too shabby. Pretty good, really. All right, I'm pretty happy with the results of this exploration, these mechanics, and the very mysterious lore continues to be mysterious. But as you can see, there's a big moon up here in the dream, and there's more to tie moon and dream together. But we'll slowly get into that as much as we can as we continue to go through the playthrough. In the meantime, before we get to the exciting reveal of my arcane-influenced weapon, next time, you can look forward to that. I am going to call an end to my hunt for the evening, but I wish all of you good hunting. Every time. Okay, I give up. Good hunting.